Hello, glad to see you back for video number 2. So, I hope you're having a great day today and ready to dive in. Let's do a really quick review of what we talked about in the first video. So we went over the importance of having your resources, right, as close to the time frame that you're studying. So we'll be talking about the Constitution more. And my Constitution is a certified copy from the Texas State Library Archives, which includes the federal Constitution and a copy of the Bill of Rights, circa 1819. I also recommend that you have either a physical copy of Noah Webster Dictionary 1828, but you can also go online and find it where you can just plug in the word and it'll pull it up. So it's a free digital copy, if you will. So what else? Just all your resources should be as close to the date you're studying as possible. I also have a law dictionary handy. I have 5th edition Black's Law Dictionary. It's not the best edition. You want one that's older, but that's all I could afford. So anyhow, okay. So hopefully you read the Declaration of Independence and managed to get through the Constitution for the United States of America a couple of times. Highlight, take notes, look into definitions and whatnot. And hopefully you could see that it was very much written to form a governing body or entity or business, so to speak, to provide certain services for the United States, for all of the states, to the benefit of all of the states. Has nothing to do with me and you individually as men and women. We are above the Constitution, right? We are Americans. And that's important to understand. We are Americans. And what we're going to cover today is how you can be an American or you can be a United States citizen, but you can't be both, right? Yep, you heard me. You can be an American or a United States citizen, but you can't be both. So, holy cow, what is that all about? Well, I'm gonna point you to a video here in a few minutes, but let's talk about, so they created, the framers of the Constitution, our forefathers, created a constitutional republic. Okay, and there were factions. There were, like I said before, people who were wanting to be an independent nation, all of the states be independent nation states with one federal government overseeing certain services, where other people wanted to be still under, they wanted to have a king, right? And or have big government that was over everything. And so were there the factions of people, right? So when we got the Constitutional Republic, it was a gift, truly. And like Ben Franklin said, we gave you a republic if you can keep it. We have not kept it. Immediately out of the gates, there were factions that were trying to undermine and change, if you will, the Constitutional Republic. And in fact, it has been, what do I want to say? Not changed, but we did lose it. So we're going to jump forward. So between 1789 and the Civil War, a slow undermining happened. It was a very slow process. And so here we get to the Civil War. And again, these videos are just to give you a super high level review or to introduce you to some concepts that you have not probably heard before. We're not going to dive into any one particular item or issue in depth. So we get to the Civil War. Now, there's conversation and discussion that can be had about the Civil War, the whys, the whos, the hows, who was a good guy, bad guy. At any rate, the Civil War really wasn't about slavery. Slavery was pulled into it, and it had to do a lot with banking, right? Because the North was industrialized and was in a serious amount of debt. And the South had plantations and was not in debt. And so Abraham Lincoln went to Southern plantation owners and asked them if they would be willing to use their plantations as collateral to pay the debt for the North. And they said no. No. And so they seceded. And what happened at that time was then the Congress of the Republic adjourned. And any time Congress adjourns, they always set a date to reconvene. And they did not. So the Congress of the Republic adjourned without setting a date to reconvene. Thus, and then the southern states seceded from the nation. So that fractured the United States of America, which really meant the United States of America no longer really was functioning properly. So Lincoln then put us into a state of military rule, of which we've never formally come out of, actually. But then Lincoln was assassinated. Terrific, right? So the country was in a dire situation. So then we have a new president take power, and vice president, and at that time then a new Congress convened. So it was not the Congress of the Republic, it was a new Congress. And in 1871, what transpired was Congress passed, just federal Congress, not going to the states, they passed the Act of 1871, which completely changed the look of Washington, D.C. The powers, authorities, how it functioned, and the parameters of Washington, D.C. is from a geographical description, but they never went to the people. And in a constitutional republic, anything that the federal government does, they must get approval through the states from the people. The people must vote on it, and then the state delegates or representatives bring it back or approve it, the states themselves, to the federal government. That never happened. So thus, the Act of 1871 actually created or incorporated the federal government. So this is something you need to go look at. If I can find a link to the Act of 1871 to include under the video, I will do that. So what I'm telling you right now is that our current government, as we know it today, is in fact a corporation. So right now in the video, I want you to go to usavsus.info, USA/VS/US. So United States of America versus United States. USA/VS/US.info. And on the right hand side, about midway on the page, there are two videos. One is the Act of 1871, and it is like a 10 or 12 minute video, which is incredibly informative. Another one is a 70-minute video, which will knock your socks off. So I would recommend that you watch both of those videos, and that is going to cover the Act of 1871. The long video is going to cover a lot more. And indeed, I believe it covers our fractional reserve banking system and just a lot more. So please pause me or turn me off and go watch those 2 eye-opening videos, and then we'll continue our discussion here. Thanks. Okay, so you're back, and wowza, right? Holy Toledo. Now, where we got? So in my first video, I said I wanted to present this somewhat like a case proving. So what I have here to show you, what's that say? Right? The United States Corporation Company. Certificate of Incorporation of the United States Corporation Company. This is circa 1925. All right? So you can go on YouTube and find this all over the place. Corporations, every so often, they have to renew their paperwork, their articles of incorporation. So this is from 1925. I think you can find them from 1901, and the original was 1871. So interesting document to read through because it's no joke. So our current government, as we know it, is a corporation, and I will link you to another internet website that will show you that all of the states are subsidiaries of the United States Corporation Company, meaning that all of the states then incorporated and became like franchisees. So what transpired is, instead of having Michigan, now we have the state of Michigan. Instead of having Alaska, we have the state of Alaska. So there's play on words, and this is when it becomes very important to understand why verbiage, grammar, language is incredibly important. So I want to jump back to jurisdictions. Okay, so in the first video, it was all about the republic and common law jurisdiction, or the law of the land, right? And this is what was lawfully created by our forefathers. Okay, lawfully. So there is a difference between lawful and legal. Okay, so now we're heading into where language and everything plays more of an important role. So one of the differences they made when we talked, I mentioned the Constitution, a couple different constitutions. So the original Constitution did not have a cover page. It simply started out with the preamble, and that is where it talked about it being the Constitution for the United States of America. And when you look at that preamble, Constitution is not capitalized, United is not capitalized or should not be capitalized. You would see on the actual original, and it's for. The Constitution for the United States of America. All right, today, even in my 1819 copy, which is suspect, even then, you see here, right, Constitution for the United States. America is not on there. United States of America is not listed on that title, and it's all in caps. Something all in caps is extremely significant. Something all in caps indicates jurisdiction, if you will, or body of law. So again, the Republic, common law jurisdiction, we live on the land, it's the law of the land, versus the law of the sea, okay, or corporate law or maritime admiralty law over here, okay? This is the realm of the living and the realm of the dead, right? Because a corporation is something created on a piece of paper, much like our federal and state governments, right? So the people do the creating of those entities. So they're above those entities. And the people determine the jurisdiction. So the power and authority in that jurisdiction. So our forefathers then, in creating a republic under common law jurisdiction, well, that would be the rightful, lawful government of this land. Okay? And there's a name for that. It is called de jure. Okay? The de jure form of government. So I'm going to read that to you right now. Okay? Out of my Black's Law Dictionary, I'm going to read the definition for de jure. D-E-J-U-R-E. That is descriptive of a condition in which there has been total compliance with all requirements of law. It's of right, legitimate, lawful, by right and just title. So everything about it is good. It's lawful and as it should be. So in America, the constitutional republic, where men and women live, move, and have their being on the land under common law, is the de jure form of government. Okay? As compared to de facto. Now, I don't know, I don't watch much TV at all, but with all the craziness going on, we have heard, amongst them referring to everything as a democracy, I have heard a couple of news reporters use the word de facto. Now, how many people even know what that means and go and look it up? So let's just talk about this here real quick. Okay? De facto. In fact, indeed, actually, this phrase is used to characterize an officer, a government, a past action, or a state of affairs, which must be accepted for all practical purposes, but is illegal or illegitimate. Okay, how about a de facto government? A de facto government is one that maintains itself by a display of force against the will of the rightful legal government and is successful, at least temporarily, in overturning the instructions or institutions of the rightful legal government by setting up its own in lieu thereof. Okay? So that's exactly what happened in 1871. The South seceded. It's kind of, so the Republic went dormant, okay, so to speak, because Congress adjourned without a reconvening date. The Southern states seceded. Abraham Lincoln put us into martial rule, which has never been rescinded, actually, and they assassinated him, and now a new Congress assembled, not under the Republic. They did this whole act of 1871, created a huge government entity and in Washington, D.C., and really duped the people. They never went to the people. They never went to the states. And so therefore, it is a de facto government because it is not the Republic, and we are not functioning the way we should be or ought to be in a republic. And it is critical for people to wake up and see this. It is not no big deal. This is a huge deal because we are to be functioning under common law according to, as flesh and blood, men and women, according to Article 7 of the Bill of Rights. Correct? And today, why do we see such encroachment on our rights? It's crazy. It's beyond ridiculous. And if you're not seeing that, something's wrong. you need to really go back and read the documents because it's crazy. It's crazy big. They have roped us, lassoed us, lassoed. They have taken men and women out of the jurisdiction of the land or common law and pulled us into the jurisdiction of the sea. And over here, so the land is where flesh and blood lives and functions and moves, and we have every right under the sun that God gives us. The freedom to have businesses, to keep our money. Remember, a license is something that an authority gives you to do that which you want to do, which would otherwise be illegal. It is not illegal for me to cut hair. That's not unlawful. They have no right to make me purchase a license, and that's all it is, right? So over here in corporate land, that is the law of the sea, and anything over here has to do with corporations, commercial activity. So buying and selling product, that's a whole nother thing, right? But you don't need a license to perform a service. So if you want to cut hair, you want to go fishing, hunting, drive a car, you have the right to travel freely, unhindered. If you want to mow lawns to earn money, that is your right. Okay? The government has no authority to do that, to demand a license, require a license in a republic. But they have fraudulently, deceitfully pulled us out of the proper jurisdiction into the realm of the dead. Okay, me and you are living flesh and blood. Over here in a republic, that's where we function. On the land, flesh and blood, living. Okay, remember, men and women create on paper. Okay, this is a dead entity. Articles of incorporation. This is a corporation. This is the only proof that that corporation exists. It's on a piece of paper. It is not living. It's not a living entity. It's not, no blood, no breathing. It's a dead entity. Okay, so over here in the realm of the dead, you have corporations, you have commercial trade, banking, you have banking, right? So a corporation has no energy in and of itself. It can't make anything. All it can do is a corporation can move money from here to there, right? It needs people, the energy of people to make it work. And so they have fraudulently and deceptively pulled us into their jurisdiction. And that should be very, very upsetting to you. Extremely upsetting to you. There is a difference between laws and statutes, acts, and codes. So remember in the last video, I asked you who you were. Pop quiz. Who are you? You are a man or a woman. That's it. A man or a woman. Right? So just, there's a difference between lawful and legal. Lawful and legal. And what they've done, the reason we now need law dictionaries is because they have made it so challenging for us. Laws are simple, very straightforward and simple. Acts, statutes, and codes get really murky, and there's over 22 million of them just in America. How are you supposed to know what those are? That's very challenging. So you need to have a legal dictionary. You need to have the 1828 Noah's Dictionary, Noah Webster, and you need to understand that they have roped us in, and they've done that a number of ways. So basically, anything after the original 13th Amendment to the Constitution for the United States of America is null and void. Okay, because they never went to the people to ask, how are we going to fix what the Civil War did? They never asked the people what kind of government. They never reconvened the Republic, and they never asked the people. So it's all terribly unlawful. I want to read to you, we're going to go back for a second, because this is quite interesting. It's huge. Remember, my copy of the Constitution is certified 1819, and it has the original 13th Amendment in it. And so most people are like, well, what do you mean? What is that? Well, so at the time of the Revolutionary War, who did we fight? We fought Great Britain, the Crown, right? So this would be the second time, if you've read the Constitution, and especially a version like this, it talked about how nobody could accept a title of nobility, right? That type of thing. Well, they thought that was so important, they put in another amendment. The original 13th Amendment, and I'm going to read it to you. The original 13th Amendment: if any citizen of the United States shall accept, claim, receive, or retain any title of nobility or honor, or shall, without the consent of Congress, accept and retain any present, pension, office, or emolument of any kind whatever from any emperor, king, prince, or foreign power, such person shall cease to be a citizen of the United States and shall be incapable of holding any office of trust or profit under them or either of them. That's a big pill to swallow. You can back me up and listen to that again. All right. This was passed and added to the Constitution in 1810. What does it mean? What's its significance? Well, one, we can't take bribes. We can't take money from any other countries. All right. That's unlawful. Because that's like buying someone. If you're taking money, then you're apt to, want to pass rules or regulations like international trade guidelines because you're getting money from another country, right? Kind of like our lobbyists today. What a bunch of crap. Anyway, sorry, I digress. So we just, in the Revolutionary War, we had fought Great Britain. So if you read this, okay, gives you a lot of information on the signers of the Declaration of Independence. And several of them actually were bar attorneys. Others were just simply lawyers. Did you know there's a difference between a lawyer, and an attorney? Well, there is. So, a bar attorney, have you ever wondered what the bar stands for? B-A-R. Hold on to your seats because this is a big deal. Okay. BAR stands for British Accredited Registry. British Accredited Registry. So let that sink in for a minute. When attorneys pass the bar, they take an oath to the crown. Whether they realize it or not, they are swearing their allegiance to Great Britain, to the crown. And so in 1810, it was already in the Constitution that nobody should take any titles of nobility or whatnot from other countries. However, the 13th Amendment added that if you do, you lose your American citizenship. That's huge. That's huge. That if you are a bar attorney, you lose your American citizenship, and you can't hold public office, or you cannot hold public office because your oath is to another country. Right? We don't, today people just, blow that off. Oh, well, that's not today, blah, blah, blah. But that was so significant back then that no attorneys should hold public office in the government, state government, any public office whatsoever. Right? The other thing I want to point out, just because it said, if you do, such person shall cease to be a citizen of the United States. All right? In 1810, citizen was lowercase, all right? Lowercase c. And it was basically, that was synonymous with American. Citizen and American were the same. Okay? So after the Civil War, when they created the Act of 1871, well, guess what? Okay. Oh, and I just want to say that Abraham Lincoln was a lawyer. He was not a bar attorney. He was a lawyer. So they scrubbed the 13th Amendment, the original 13th Amendment. Now, if you were just to go Google this, it would say, it would show another 13th Amendment, the one that's on the books right now, and it would say, oh, some people think that, there was another 13th Amendment, but it was never ratified. Well, they have scrubbed it from documents like Hillary's emails, right? So shenanigans have gone on all throughout history, right? So that's why you have to do your due diligence. So there was a group of people in the 90s who did an extensive research project on the original 13th Amendment. And in fact, just like this is a copy of the federal Constitution out of the state of Virginia, right? Every state government had a copy of the federal Constitution, and anytime any new amendments were added, because they had to be approved by the states got copies of it. So this particular one includes that original 13th Amendment. And the group that did the research project did extensive research in every state at that time. I don't know offhand how many states that was, but found that the proper number of states ratified and accepted, all the states had the original 13th Amendment in it at that time, 1810. Okay? All had the 13th original amendment. And some people want to argue that, well, that information was sent out to the states erroneously. Well, no, it wasn't. There is nothing in the National Archives to indicate that they redacted anything, that they sent out any notices of wrongful or erroneous information about the 13th Amendment. It's just not there. Yet all the states have it in their copy of the federal Constitution at that time. So, more homework for you if you don't believe it. But, so therefore now we have bar attorneys. That's pretty much all we have serving in our state and federal governments. And isn't this interesting? So in a republic, we are sovereign Americans, and we say sovereign because the Declaration of Independence made us all equal. All men are created equal. There are no kings over us. Anyhow, that's what the beauty of America was. We were all determined to be kings and queens unto ourselves, so we were sovereign Americans. We the people, right, wrote the Constitution, created the federal government to be small and tiny over here in this little playpen, and they only had so much power and authority. The Bill of Rights is what is to guarantee our rights that we get from God, that the government will uphold and guarantee and enforce and make sure we have those rights, that they're never encroached upon. In a perfect world, in a republic. So all the shenanigans went on. The Civil War, we already talked about all that. So now they scrub the 13th Amendment. We have almost nothing but attorneys in public offices. And what did they do? Okay, so when you read the Act of 1871, when you understand, we now have, in the Republic, we had Americans, and over here, in the land of the dead, we have United States citizens, uppercase C. Remember, lowercase c and uppercase C on citizens is significant. So we're going to go to the 14th Amendment, all right? The 14th Amendment. So after the Civil War, we now have kind of, the slaves were set free, right? And so if you know that there's a war between good and evil, I'm just going to put it out there. There's a war between good and evil, always has been, and until Jesus comes again, we will always have good versus evil, right? So men who aren't, if you don't have a moral compass, right, or believe in a higher power, then you think you're all that in a bag of chips and you're going to go after stuff, right? So that's what happened. So then we have Amendment 14, because there needed to be a way at that time for, supposedly for slaves to become free, if you will, like to have a title. It's just really kind of crazy. So here is Amendment 14. Section 1. It's not the whole thing, but Section 1. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Okay, so Section 5 of Article 14 states, the Congress shall have the power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article. Now, I want to propose to you, if I wanted a job at Walmart, okay, Walmart says anyone who wants to work here, who wants to be an employee, must be 18 years of age or older and have a Social Security number. Okay, well, I'm 18 years or older and I have a Social Security number. Does that make me automatically an employee of Walmart? No. Okay, I need to fill out an application, right? And get hired at Walmart to be considered a Walmart employee, right? My point is that just because I meet the qualifications does not make me an employee of Walmart Corporation, right? So understanding that in the Republic, you and I were Americans and we were sovereign, and the Constitution secured our God-given rights, all of them, not just those in the Bill of Rights. Remember, Article 9 of the Bill of Rights, the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. So we hold lots more rights than are what listed in the Bill of Rights. So what did this 14th Amendment do? Did you catch that? I'm going to read it one more time. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Section 5, the Congress shall have the power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article. So, I'm just going to put this in order for you. Okay? In the Republic, we have we the people, sovereign Americans. Okay? Kings and queens of our own right. We are men and women. Okay? We wrote the Constitution, which created the federal government. All right? Amendment 14. The federal government just is saying any person born or naturalized and subject to their jurisdiction is a citizen of the United States. So now our federal government has created a class of people called United States citizens under their jurisdiction. And now they have the power. The Congress shall have the power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article. You guys, you need to get this. Okay? In order to be a United States citizen, you need to be born in the United States or naturalized in the United States, and you need to be subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Okay? So we as Americans, sovereign, holding all of our rights that God gave us, if we consent to the jurisdiction of the federal government, if we consent, we then are subject to their power and authority, and we must follow the laws, which are really acts, statutes, and codes, their legislation. I'm hoping you're getting this because it's major. Well, they knew the people. If they were straightforward and actually explained all this, the people just are not paying attention. We have not paid attention. They have changed our school system. They have dumbed us down. They are not explaining or telling us what these things mean. They keep it super fluffy, and it just, we don't even pay attention or know, right? So now we have just acquiesced. So not only did they dupe us with the 14th Amendment, right? Totally duped us. They implemented birth certificates. So that's something else that we're going to get into in the next video. Birth certificates. They changed our banking. So, you know, in the Constitution, if you read it, you would see that the only lawful form of money is gold and silver. That has never changed. Never ever. Still in the Constitution. No new amendments about that. However, they've totally duped the American people. They went door to door. I told you my grandpa came here from Germany. in 1930, and I think it was in 1933. Remember, you have the Republic, the law of the land. Over here you have the law of the sea, which is Admiralty, maritime, banking laws. And they went around in 1933 and took everybody's gold. Oh, this is a new law. It's now illegal for you to have gold, and we're going to confiscate it. And they went door to door. The government did, and took everyone's gold. Lovely. You don't believe me? You need to go do some research on that. My grandpa was alive and told us about it. So then they started birth certificates also in the 30s, and there's a whole, we're going to get into that. Then they started the whole fractional reserve banking later. It's crazy. It's just crazy. So, y'all, the next, well, let me see. So you went and watched that video. We talked about de jure and de facto. Now, I just, for fun, want to read one more definition to you. So I know I sound like a broken record, but it's so important for us to understand the two jurisdictions, the law of the land, the law of the sea, common law, admiralty, maritime, corporate, commerce law. Okay. Men and women over here, Americans, United States citizens over here, persons, individuals. Okay. That's why I said in the first video, it's really important to understand that you are a man or a woman. As you start getting into this, you need to go look up statutes, acts, and codes, right? There needs to be a definition because they need to define who are they talking about. You are not an employee. When you actually, on your IRS, if you were to look up the definition for an employee, it's not you. Okay? Drivers. So they lead us to believe that we need driver's licenses because we're drivers. Nope, sorry guys. Guess who's a driver? Commercial people. Okay? Commercial yes. If you're a commercial driver, you do need a commercial driver's license because that falls under the jurisdiction of state and federal governments. Remember, commerce over here. So yes, for your job, you would need a commercial driver's license. But as soon as you're done with work on that day, you don't need a driver's license. Because as an American, you are free to travel. Unhindered, unencumbered, you can travel. It's amazing. So it's really important for you to know. So common law, right? Nobody told us about common law. They didn't teach that to us in school. Nobody ever mentions it. It just flies over everyone's head. Well, one, because nobody reads the Constitution. But if you were to read it, you should question, well, what the heck is common law jurisdiction? Right? So I'm going to go in here. Okay? And let me see. If you look up common law, let me just see here. Okay. Common law, as distinguished from law created by the enactment of legislatures, right? The common law comprises the body of those principles and rules, what I told you, right, based on customs and immemorial antiquity. Okay, so we've talked all about that. Well, common law courts. In England, those administering the common law. Yeah, guess what? They were here too. But our handy-dandy Black's Law Dictionary that everybody over here in the United States uses, apparently that's not in America, even though it's mentioned in our Constitution. Isn't that interesting? A common lawyer. Okay? A lawyer, hang on a second. I have something over that, and I can't get it. Anyhow, a lawyer learned in common law. This term is now generally obsolete. Why? Because they don't want us to know anything about the common law. They don't want us to know anything about the law of the land or that jurisdiction. And so they have been trying to get it to go away forever. And now in our legal law dictionaries, they tell us it's obsolete. That common lawyers are obsolete. Abraham Lincoln was a common lawyer. And really, at this point, you should be really, really ticked off. Because if we don't value and if we don't get upset about these things, we will lose everything. And we are on a slippery slope to socialism and communism. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to live in a country that looks like Cuba or Nazi Germany or Russia back in the day. So your homework is to go read the 14th Amendment, to go find the original 13th Amendment and digest that, because these things are so critical, right? Let me see. I just want to finish. There's one sentence here I want to finish with. Let me see if I can find it. The 14th Amendment has, I showed you this in the first video, Court of Record Study Guide, 1215.org. I don't know if you can buy this on that site or not. This is a phenomenal study guide. And he goes through a bunch of the word play that we are not familiar with. Let me see. But what they started doing was, here it is. All right. So what they started doing, where they started changing things in school. All right. I think you'll identify with this. It was also during the mid-1800s that the various governments took control of the school systems. The curriculum shifted from civics, the study of natural rights and common law, to American government, the study of civil privileges and statutory law. Emphasis was also refocused on good citizenship, right? So this was to blunt the people's perception that the civil privileges were called civil rights. So all a word play, all to totally deceive us. And then the transition from teaching natural rights to teaching civil rights or privileges took about 100 years, 1850s to 1950s. During the 1950s, the school systems changed the courses named from civics to American government. Hardly anyone now is aware of the subject of civics as a school course, right? We should be very upset. They also took out Latin, Greek, so we don't know or understand the root meanings of words, or the root word of our vocabulary words that we use. So at any rate, go watch those videos again, listen to this again, look for the 13th Amendment, and anyhow, and read the 14th Amendment and really try and break that down, or look for a study on that. The one I just gave you is really good. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. The next video will be all on language. That'll be that'll be really an eye-opener, and you'll be able to laugh on some things there too. So have a great day.